So before we get into tonight's topic, I do want to kind of put a disclaimer out there. This is a pretty rough topic. It is quite sensitive, and you probably will gather through the way the story goes the untimely and unfortunate ending, which it's quite hard to say. And I suppose I want to talk about it, and I have spoken about it numerous times before. It's about 8 years ago, and this is how sad I am. I put a reminder in my phone, and it basically says a week to go. So what this week to go is to give me some sort of, I suppose it's going to sound really weird, some mental fortitude as to what's probably going to happen over the next week. I had a bunch of friends that we've all drifted apart over the course of the year, very, very cliche, a bunch of military friends. And we were quite a close-knit group at our initial training. And like a very morbid and upsetting tradition, one of my friends every year without fail, and this goes back to that little alarm that I set in my phone, is that she'll just send a text message to a group that lays dormant for 364 days of the year saying, today's the day, or something along the lines of that. It kind of mixes up over the course of the year. I'm not going to include the screenshot just for sensitivities and to protect their privacy, but just take my word for it. It's a pretty rough topic. Going back that amount of time, so we built a very, very, very close relationship on our training course in the military. It was, to us, very arduous, and what we went through collectively, and it sounds weird, and it's just something that a bunch of special people do. We just built a friendship group of 4 people, and myself, another guy, and 2 girls, over the course of 4 months. I've said that numerous times. So anyway, we kept up with each other quite frequently over the year that transpired before the incident that I'm going to be talking about today. One of my friends, so the person in question, I'm not going to use their name, he wanted to do something in the military that he had his heart on for a very, very, very long time. And unfortunately, that didn't play out for him. And I will, it's really hard to structure this story, so I do apologize. Let me tell you right now, it's a nervous laugh because I'm not comfortable talking about this subject. And if I jump over and up and down and left and right, I do apologize. So going back a little bit that I should have said first is that when we were on this course, it became very apparent to us that we probably all had neurodivergence tendencies, varying degrees. My friend, I suppose the centerpiece of this conversation, this story that I'm telling tonight, he was on the spectrum. Incredibly smart person, very, very, very smart, well-liked, very charismatic, but just a little bit awkward. and it sounds contradictory, but he was a really good guy, like fantastic, great sense of humor. But certain points, he would reset to kind of a Sheldon Cooper mindset, then snap out of it, then go back to his normal, fantastic self. So this guy was absolutely obsessed with numbers, and he worked out how much he was getting paid by a second, had a spreadsheet up, so he would work out his fortnightly salary, take out all the different things that came into it, or all the different things that came out of it, and bolted it down to the second. So every second of the day, he worked out how much he was getting paid. So he was very analytically minded, fantastic mind, which it makes it all the much worse when we get to the conclusion of the story. But he wasn't under the impression that he was only working 36 hours a week. And we thought we'd play a little joke on him that we told him that he works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we didn't see him for 2 or 3 days. He locked himself in the room on a Friday afternoon. and we didn't see him till Monday morning, and he had the biggest bloodshot I've ever seen in my life because he was just trying to work out where he went wrong with his calculations. I don't know how that really worked, considering he was really quick off the bat to work it out over a 36-hour period, but hey, just one of his moments he was probably overthinking. But fast forward a little bit into the future. So he was from Western Australia, and I was working out from Western Australia at that time in a HR position, and I was able to offer him a position of where I worked. I was lucky enough to have, I suppose, the opportunity to get people to work for me pending transfer to a different core or a different category or something along the lines of that. And I heard that he came off course of the thing that he wanted to do, and he was currently sitting in like a holding pattern, or where he would just do mundane tasks every day. And what it really, the extent of it was, he was pushing a button, opening doors for people, which they didn't need to do. They could just swipe their defense card and go through the door, but he was being polite, pushing the green button, kind of preempting it, probably doing a game inside his head or something along the lines of that. So I asked my person that worked for me, because it was the birth of my child, I wasn't able to orchestrate it. I asked him to reach out and see if he was interested in coming over to Western Australia to be close to his family and have that support network. Unfortunately, that didn't occur, so I'm not too sure. My memory fails me. I'm not too sure if the guy didn't ask or he declined, but obviously I was preoccupied with my brand new baby and my wife, my other kids, to follow it up. But transfer a little bit into the future, and I wanted to put a linchpin into that. So rewinding about 20 seconds, in the sense that that was the first failing, that I didn't reach out to see if he was wanting to come to Western Australia to be closer to his family. And that's one of my first failings in this story. There's multiple, so many failings. And if I had one superpower, I'd probably rewind to a specific moment, which I will get to later in the video, to undo it, to basically to do it, to change one thing that I didn't do, and probably would have changed the trajectory of this story. But like I said, he didn't come across to Western Australia. He was doing jobs. He got recategorised to another position, so he went and did some, because he was already qualified for a certain trade before we all caught up. So he went into that because he was incredibly smart. And he rang me up one day, which would have been around, not necessarily today, but the next couple of days, which is why I set the alarm a week in advance, just to get my head in the right mindset. And talking about it hopefully will help. And I'm not after sympathy, please. I'm just trying to, long way of talking about trying to not repeat these mistakes again and build a community through here. I don't care if it's one or two people, but if I can make the difference for one person, it will make me feel a little bit better, and obviously not have this situation repeat for someone else. But he rang me up, and this is the hardest part of the story. So he rang me up, and because I was busy in my job, I had my new baby, my wife, my kids, and all these different things, and a lot of things going on at my workplace, a lot of HR incidents within the team, which is no excuse. And he asked me if I had 5 minutes to chat, and looking back at it, it wasn't his normal, happy, bubbly, full of energy, full of life self. And I said, look, I'm sorry, mate, I don't have time. I'll give you a call back tomorrow. And I didn't. I absolutely forgot to call him back. And going back to what I'm saying, to the crux of this story and the conclusion of this story, I got a phone call a week later from another person in our peer group, one of the girls, and she said we lost Joe Bloggs, obviously not his real name, and I said, what do you mean? Because it's very surreal, and I don't know if anyone's ever lost someone, and quite possibly you have, and there's a lot of different weird and horrible circumstances to lose people, but when you get told by someone on the phone that you've lost someone, your first place your brain goes to isn't necessarily, oh, they've passed away or they've died or something along those lines. It means, what do you mean you've lost them? Like, where did you put them? Or where, what do you mean, lazy? Packed up his baggage and, kind of backpacking around Europe or something along the lines of that. But no, she said, look, he's passed away. He was involved in an accident of his own causing. And, we lost him, and I was just dumbfounded. Like, I was literally frozen in time. I can even remember it like it was yesterday. I was sitting in my collective office. If you want to look at it from an HR perspective, probably an officer manager kind of role. I was sitting in there having a talk to people, joking around like I normally do, my personality, and I just froze, and people just stared at me because it's uncharacteristic. You probably can realise that I like the sound of my own voice. And they were just shocked because the blood must have drained from my face, and I just went back to my office, closed the door, and just sat there in disbelief for the longest period of time. And even all these years later, I'm finding it very hard to come to grips with it. And like I said, every year it comes around, and it's one of those things that I don't want to repeat. And I kind of want to, like, I suppose, offer you, to, if you are thinking about, things that aren't going well for you or are going for those, I plead for you to, pursue help and services and all those different things. And by all means, leave a comment on the video if you need to chat, because I find that, me personally, that helps. I'm not a psychiatrist or not a mental health worker in any capacity, but I'm more than happy to engage and have a chat to you and hopefully get you the help you need to not, or someone else in your situation, so you don't replicate what I've gone through. And a lot of people have, and it's something that's like a fresh wound every time I get this text message or this alarm. And it was all over a girl. And I don't mean that to sound bad, or I don't mean to sound dismissive or, anything in particular from that perspective. And the reason why he rang me up for was to tell me that he broke up with her, or she broke up with him, and he needed someone to talk to and decompress. And I wasn't that person, and I wasn't available for him, and he's no longer here for that now. Please don't, please don't make my mistake.